Thank you. and gentlemen, if everybody could take your seats, we'd like to get this meeting started. It seems like the line has died down. Pretty much everybody is inside, so we appreciate everybody coming this evening. This is a fabulous turnout. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for patiently waiting for us to begin. Obviously, we have a quorum, but before we start, I just want to go through a few things before we begin, as I usually do. So, welcome to the special town meeting here on October the 23rd of this year, 2023. I'm your town moderator, Kate Welch, and seated up here on stage with me, I just want to introduce our town clerk, Danielle Sicard, and our town council, Jay Tallerman. So I just want to take this opportunity, like I indicated, to go over some particular guidelines, basic guidelines for tonight's meeting. There are two articles on the warrant, as everybody is very aware, and we do have another special town meeting coming up in the middle of November. But these two articles that are on the warrant tonight are very particular and specific and deserve attention. And so we decided collectively to have a special town meeting just to address these articles this evening. Seated on the floor in front of me are members of our select board. They'll be making motions on these two articles and explaining them for everybody here in the audience. Seated also on the floor down here to my left are members of the Finance Committee. They'll also be making recommendations on these articles. Also in the audience, mostly down in the front few rows here, there are department heads, other committee members who will be here to answer questions that anyone has and help us to make good decisions for this town. If you're a registered voter, please make sure that you checked in at the entrance of the auditorium, which I'm sure everybody did because there were a number of tables and it was pretty orderly out there when I was out there. Everybody should have received an orange card if you're a registered voter, and also a ballot, just in case. If you're not a registered voter, you are still welcome to stay here for the town meeting. Down here in this section on my right is reserved for people that wanted to come to the town meeting that are not registered voters. Regarding the meeting itself, please remember that the meeting is governed by town meeting time, as well as our bylaws and our town charter. There's a glossary of terms, or there should be, provided in the back of the warrant if you need to review any of the terms. This meeting is being recorded by ECAT up in the back for people to view at home. So it needs to be, it's extremely important that everything is done clearly, and when people approach the microphone, when it's time for any of the town members to speak or audience members to speak, you need to make sure that you're clear in saying your name and your address, okay? Again, everything is recorded by ECAT, but it's also recorded by our town clerk. So it's really important that everybody is clear when you say your name and your address. So again, if you'd like to speak on any of the articles, either of the articles that are presented, I will give you the opportunity to do so. Please gather your thoughts, however, because it's a very crowded evening. I'm sure people have things to say. You will only be allowed to speak one time on each article. So make sure that you gather your thoughts before you approach the microphone. Again, saying your name and address and being recognized before you do so. If there are any comments or any statements that are made that are non-productive or combative, repetitive, not on topic, out of line, cross-examination type situations, I reserve the right to stop that type of banter and that type of questioning. There won't be any back and forth. So again, remember, think about what you're going to say before you approach that microphone. Everybody will be treated with courtesy by the moderator and everybody else in the room. This meeting is not to be used for any personal attacks on any one individual. Voting will be done by your orange cards by a show of hands. When I ask for it, all those in favor, orange card, all those opposed, orange card. If it becomes too close to call by the orange card, then I may elect to hold a ballot vote on question number 1. If we have to do that, we have an orderly plan already in place if that becomes something that we need to do, okay? In the event that we do not use the ballot vote, please take those ballots back and put them in the boxes on the tables as you leave. I will recognize motions to move the question, but if in my opinion there are still people that have something productive to say or want to say something, I will let people speak. And I think that that's all I have to say for now. Clearly, there's a quorum. The clerk has confirmed that there's a quorum. The warrant is in order, so we will begin the town meeting. If everybody could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all so much. So today is Monday, October 23rd, 2023, and it is now, let's see, what time is it? 7:32. The special town meeting for the town of Easton is now called to order. Article number 1. Board Member Fulgenetti.
I move that $150,524,814 is appropriated to be expended by the Select Board and the Municipal Building Committee for the replacement of the Easton Public Safety and Public Works facilities. Said project, consisting of new police, fire, and public works facilities, serving the community of Easton, to be constructed on property located at 524 Depot Street and the 5 acres of land located at the southeast intersection of Washington and Main Street, also known as Daly's Corner, in Easton, Massachusetts. This project shall include the construction of a new public safety headquarters of police and fire at 524 Depot, along with a consolidated public works complex at the same address, along with a new fire substation on the 5 acres of land at Daly's Corner, and shall include all associated site work and all other costs incidental and related thereto. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow said amount under Chapter 44 of the General Laws or any other enabling authority, and that the Select Board and the Municipal Building Committee are authorized to take any other actions necessary to carry out this project. And further, that the Select Board is authorized to enter into and execute a long-term land lease agreement for up to 75 years with Stonehill College for said fire substation located at Daly's Corner, provided, however, that this vote shall not take effect until the town votes to exempt from the limitation on total taxes imposed by General Law, Chapter 59, subsection 21C, otherwise known as Proposition 2.5, amounts required to pay the principal of and interest on the borrowing authorized by this vote.
Second.
By way of explanation, this article will authorize the necessary borrowing authority for the town to design and construct new police, fire, and public works facilities throughout Easton. The existing facilities range from 50 to greater than 70 years old and do not meet various health, safety, and environmental codes. The buildings are beyond their useful lives, and site limitations make repair and expansion of the existing facilities, which currently consume 80% of the town's available annual municipal building repair funds, not possible. The project will replace existing police, fire, and public works facilities with 3 new facilities located on 2 sites. This will include a combined police, fire, public safety complex at 524 Depot Street, along with a combined public works and fleet maintenance complex at the same address, along with a new fire substation located at the intersection of Washington Street and Main Street on Stonehill College property. The project will provide modern, safe, and effective facilities for Easton's first responders for decades to come, and will better position the community to continue to provide excellent emergency and public works services to all residents. In addition to the board and committee recommendations noted in the warrant, the town administrator, chief of police, fire chief, director of public works, and 5 unions representing the departments: Easton Firefighters, IAFF Local 2790, Easton Police Supervisors Association, Easton Patrol Officers Association, SPEA Department of Public Works, and SPEA DPW Water Division all support the project. This article would authorize the borrowing and appropriation, as well as the approval of the related lease with Stonehill College for the replacement of the fire substation. The motion for the appropriation and borrowing authorization in this article will be contingent upon successful debt exclusion vote at a town election. In order for the public safety and public works facilities replacement project to advance, both this article and the debt exclusion ballot question must pass. The town administrator, director of public works, chief of police, and fire chief will present the project at the town meeting All project information, including a tax impact calculator, is available at www.eastonpsw.com. The Select Board recommends.
Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends.
The Municipal Building Committee recommends as well. The Capital Planning Committee recommends as well. The School Committee recommends as well, and so does the Green Communities Committee. They also recommend. So now we'll have a presentation.
Where?
Good evening. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. It's great to see this turnout. For those I haven't met yet, my name is Connor Reed. I'm your town administrator, and I've had the privilege of serving this community in that capacity for 7 years now. Joining me tonight to present the Public Safety and Public Works Facilities Replacement Project are the Director of Public Works, David Field, Fire Chief Justin Alexander, and Chief of Police Keith Brody. 2 years ago, voters in this same room funded a feasibility process to replace police, fire, and public works facilities throughout Easton. Tonight marks the culmination of 2 years of work by the Building Committee to complete that feasibility process and recommend new facilities to this community. So while we're here tonight ostensibly to talk about a building project, the reality is much greater than that. Because there's no such thing as just a public building project. These are investments that shape the trajectory of our community for decades to come. Much like Glen James was much more than a project about building a school, but about creating safe, nurturing, and inspiring environments for our children to live up to their fullest potential. A project about this community collectively coming together to invest in its future. So too, this project is about more than outdated and aged facilities in need of sprinklers and ventilation systems. It's about providing safe, healthy, and effective spaces for our first responders for where they work and what they call their second home, 24 hours a day, 365 days per year, and doing so in a manner which provides all of you with the highest level of consistent, reliable safety services. The project is about how we choose to care for those who care for us. The men and women in these departments are some of Easton's finest. They build our roads and treat our water. They respond to emergencies and hazards of all types. They pick us up and support us through some of the hardest days of our lives. And they dedicate their careers and their lives to keeping Easton safe and strong. This project has been developed and reviewed at more than 40 public meetings and community events over the course of 2 years, and it comes to you tonight, enjoying the unanimous recommendation of your neighbors and elected officials on the Select Board, Finance Committee, the School Committee, Capital Planning Committee, the Green Community Committee, and of course, the Municipal Building Committee. However, as with any project of this size and consequence, the ultimate decision belongs to you, the voters. The choices we make here tonight and on November 4th will define our trajectory for the next 50 years. So as we start this evening, on behalf of everyone who has spent the past few years working on this project, I just want to say thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for your engagement and your attendance to make this choice together. So tonight's presentation has three main pieces. First, we're going to start with the why, looking at why this project is here, what steps we've taken to get here, and why we should act now to address the significant deficiencies that exist in these facilities. From there, we'll show you a proposed solution, the new police, fire, and public works facilities for the town of Easton, and how they will improve safety and operational capacity for these critical departments and position them to serve you for the next 50 years. Finally, we'll talk about the project budget and what that means for you as residents of this community, including a second article on your warrant for the establishment of a means-tested tax relief program for seniors on fixed incomes. And then finally, it will be up to you as voters of this community to decide if this proceeds. So why this project? The majority of Easton's police, fire, and public works facilities were constructed between World War II and before the moon landing. The main facilities are between 50 and greater than 70 years old, with some facilities in use dating back to the Civil War era surpassing 130 years. When DDW on Center Street opened in 1952, the town's population of 6,300 is a quarter of what it is today. And color television had just hit shelves as cutting-edge technology. when Police and Fire on Lothar Street opened in 1968. The police department ran the ambulance and the fire department had about 3 personnel. These facilities were designed and constructed to serve a substantially smaller population during a vastly different time when women were not shoulder to shoulder with the men in these departments, and when the technology that they were expected to maintain and care for did not exist. A time when cancer prevention was not part of our building design and asbestos was standard practice. Not as a result of neglect, but simply the passage of a great amount of time, the community growing with the incredible rate of change, not just in the technology used by these departments, but the expectations placed upon them to keep the community safe. These facilities are simply past their useful life, and continued repairs is no longer a viable option. Recognizing those challenges, the Municipal Building Committee back in 2019 voted to begin the process of feasibility. That was shelved for a year due to the COVID pandemic, and then in 2021, voters of Easton appropriated the funds to kick this project off. During feasibility, 4 main themes across all of these departments became clear, and I'd ask that you keep them in mind for this section of the presentation tonight. Regardless of the department that we're speaking about, these facilities do not have enough space or the right types of space. They're not safe for personnel, equipment, or the environment. They have failing or non-compliant, or in some cases non-existent infrastructure and systems, and they're not functional for public access. They unnecessarily increase risks faced by our first responders and public works personnel and limit their operational capacity to do their jobs. And as we'll detail tonight, building the new facilities as a consolidated project will cost less and achieve more than other approaches that we could take. But before we talk about the future, we'd like to take you inside these facilities with a brief video tour so that you can see firsthand what it looks like inside.
At one time, typically 2 to 3 supervisors in here, but 6 share the office. As you can see, completely overrun with training records, equipment, and again, to ask our officers or our supervisors to use this small space, it's becoming very difficult for them to manage a shift when they're in this type of environment. This is the police department's central records area, and you'll see that we've run out of room and we've just added cabinet after cabinet after cabinet. And this goes back to several of the records that I mentioned we can't throw out. This serves as the hub of all town servers, and clearly we have outgrown this room as well. So as you can see, we have really used up all the space that we possibly can between our police vehicles, our mountain bikes, our speed sign, and in fact, our animal control officer has nowhere to put her temporary kennels, so they end up on the floor in our garage. So as you can see, this is the men's locker room facility. One thing I would like to point out is the buckling of the floor. We have had constant sewer issues where we're constantly relying on the DPW doing work orders to correct this old plumbing. This is the training room for a total of 40 officers that we have, including our civilian staff. And we just can't provide training for everybody at once. We can no longer host community meetings because, as you see, we have an arrest coming in right now. We would have to have everybody leave, go to the lobby and wait until everybody was processed and out of this area, then bring them back in.
So this is the only connection inside between police and fire. It joins through the boiler room. So you come out in here, you can see, everything in here is extremely dated. Attempts to date them over these, but the building just doesn't sustain them. It's just so old and so difficult. Everything from thermostats that don't actually control what they're supposed to, air conditioning units that are constantly failing, circulator pumps that let go, and pipes that are breaking and leaking. It's a constant problem in this building. The problem with this building is the asbestos. This building has asbestos in it. It was built before the prohibition on asbestos. So that's another issue of any type of reuse or expansion of this building is what have to be remediated. Some of our gear rack storage, so that's fire gear. The problem with it is it's out in these trucks. Even though we have these yellow hoses that you can see attached to the truck that collects the exhaust, it's still difficult to maintain a perfectly clean space, and we're getting these diesel particulate carcinogens on our fire gear that we're trying to keep clean, and then we put it on. And then we put it on and wear it. So if you're doing even just regular truck checks, so we check our trucks every day to make sure they're ready to go, Even just opening our doors goes right over, and if it's not parked perfectly, you hit, and you damage the paint, you can't get in and out. So this is very, very tight. This is our EMS equipment, so this is the cleanest place we can get to put our equipment that actually goes on people. You know, you can see we're spilling out, look at things on top of everything. And on top of that, our fire alarm system's in the same room, our copiers in the same room, and then the only bathroom that we can separate for our female firefighter is right here. So one thing that Easton Fire doesn't have in any facility is a training room, conference room. We have no place to have meetings. If I wanted to bring a few people in to have a meeting, I have no space in any of the stations.
Yeah, so this building was never built for the equipment that we have today. This is the shop floor. This is where we maintain our equipment and park some equipment indoors during inclement weather, but we can only really fit a handful of vehicles inside. We have 60 vehicles in the DPW fleet, but most of them are outside, and that's not a great thing for our fleet. That shortens the life of the vehicles. So this is the lean-to structure. This is built to at least keep the trucks under cover, which is nice, but this is well past its prime. The size of our vehicles have gotten bigger over the years, so we can only use a few of these bays for our bigger trucks. And the older ones can fit on some of those smaller bays.
Some of the deficiencies is, they don't have adequate lighting, they don't have adequate ventilation, not enough height to actually lift the trucks up to work on them, which also causes injuries for employees that might in awkward positions. And also, typically you would see these buildings sprinkled. This building's currently not sprinkled. And then the floor drains for the appropriate drainage, which do not work for anyone. Therefore, it is not environmentally friendly when the trucks
During winter operations, you'll see melting snow off vehicles as they come in to be maintained because they blew a hose and hydraulic oil and meltwater will puddle a couple inches deep all through the garage. And that's not a safe environment for people to work, not a safe thing for our mechanics to try to repair those vehicles in those conditions. So in this area we have our fluid storage, lack of secondary containment, which is no longer up to code. So this is primarily the locker storage for the seasonal employees we have. We hire about 10 seasonal employees to mow lawns at the schools and throughout town. So this is where they kind of muster the heat here with the trucks and the fumes. This is a storage for our our most expensive vehicles, our grapple and our bucket truck. And then we have additions. So this is the only two that are dedicated inside storage. They barely fit in here. There's overhead storage, but it's not appropriate. It's not load rated. It doesn't have railings. Doesn't have the proper heights once you're up there. It doesn't have the proper means to get up there. But we have no alternative. All that equipment has to be somewhere, or it's going to be outside. So this is a staff office in here. It's basically a closet storage area / supervisor's office. Again, not the ideal. Supervisor should have a proper office, and this is where we stand. The biggest issues here are the environmental non-compliance and worker health and safety.
So as jarring as that video is, it still doesn't fully convey the challenges that these facilities pose for our personnel and for the community. And so I'm going to take a moment to invite the chiefs and director each to step forward and spend a couple of minutes discussing in their own words what it is like to operate in these conditions and how it not only challenges the staff, but impacts their ability to operate to serve the community. So I'm going to start by introducing Police Chief Keith Bowden.
Thank you. Thank you for all coming out. It means a lot to us to be able to present this project to you. We've outgrown our building. This is a building that was built in 1968. Rebuilt in at the time, there were, at the time, we had 12 full-time police officers, and our population was about 10,000. Today we have 39 full-time police officers, we have 3 civilian staff, and 12 special police officers. We don't have the room to provide department-wide training, as you saw in the video. We don't have adequate facilities for our female police officers. And I took over as chief about a year ago, just finished my first year. And since then, we've hired 4 female police officers, something I'm very proud of. And as someone who wants to continue to diversify the police department, we're now left to ask the DPW to retrofit our building. As recently as a few weeks ago, we bought lockers online and had Director Field's crew come in and bolt them to the walls. Additionally, we're responsible for safeguarding thousands of records, which are now stored in file cabinets, plastic bins, and even in our garage cage. None of these records are protected in the event of a fire. And many of these are these files are in areas that we regularly have problems with roof leaks. So what we're doing now is we're covering them with plastic and doing the best we can to safeguard them. You know, the building itself, as you saw from the tour, has regular roof leaks, sewage problems that are backing up into our locker areas, and the file cabinets have just taken over a hallway. You know, our ventilation system is spanned across the entire police department. And when I say ventilation, I don't mean luxury climate control and heat and air conditioning and touch, anything like that. What I mean is moving the air in the building to prevent mold and humidity problems, which we have both. At one point, we had fentanyl exposed and opened in our cell block area, and that would broadcast through the building. We did have to rely on the fire department to come over and deem it safe before we re-entered. You know, another problem that came up with our ventilation system is, again, not having air conditioning. We were forced in July to stop running floor fans and dehumidifiers really 24/7. We did have an officer fall and get injured and have to go out of work. We have no room for a community room to host any community forums. In the past, we used to host the local HUBS group, a domestic violence group, and we were forced to just stop. We couldn't house them anymore. So we have 6 patrol supervisors, and they are using one office and sharing 3 desks. So we rely on the supervisors to issue their patrol assignments, coordinate training, review and approve reports, and to continue to ask them to use this one space is getting extremely difficult. Civilian staff have outgrown their areas as well. If you look down here on your bottom left, we're now using rooms to store these things. We're putting personnel records, training records, firearms licensing records, billing information in plastic tubs, and just finding any way we can to store them in the building. Our animal control officer shares a space, an office space, with our records clerk, which is unusual for the police department, but we just have no way to put her. So when the garage floor doesn't work, it would be uncommon to see an animal brought into the workspace to protect them during extreme temperatures. If you look on the top right, that's something that's personal to me. That's our detective office, which they've grown their space, and we've turned a closet into a makeshift office. Oftentimes we have people that are victims of violent crimes that need to come in and talk to us. We have no space for confidentiality. That hurts the victim's psyche. They won't even talk to us. So that's something I'm concerned about. So from a building condition and space needs, those are the biggest hindrances we have with the police department. And I know the fire chief Alexander wants to discuss some of the similar problems.
Thank you, Chief. We have many of the same problems that the police do. One of the biggest things near and dear to my heart is protecting our firefighters. Because without that, they can't protect you. And cancer is a real problem for us. Quickly becoming the leading cause of death for firefighters. We're predisposed to get it more than the average population due to what we're exposed to. We accept it as a dangerous job. We know it's a dangerous job to take it. What's happening is our buildings are making it worse for us. So what we're doing is, we talked a little bit about the video that you saw, we're taking our fire gear after a call and it's all discovered. When you burn things in your home and it burns, it's not good. You don't want it on you, it's cancer, it's carcinogens everywhere, chemicals. We take it back, we can wash it, we have the ability to wash the gear, but then we have no place to put it that's clean. We put it out next to our trucks, and the diesel fumes get all over it, the chemicals that we deal with on a daily basis as part of our job get on our gear, and then we wear it. And we've learned through science and through studies and research that we're actually giving ourselves cancer from our own fire gear, and there's ways to prevent it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later, is how this project can help us keep firefighters safer as a community by doing the different in a building designed for it. Another problem that we have from the conditions in the building is sewer. You've heard it talked about a couple times tonight, but just a couple weeks ago, if you look at the bottom left of your screen, you'll see a shower. That's sewage that backed up. And this happens a lot, very common. And then the same incident, it backed up to the toilet that only female firefighters can use. So they had no toilet they could use without having to go into the toilets that the men use. And we can't prevent that. DPW is a great partner. They work really hard, but the problem is that the infrastructure is just getting so old and it's difficult to fix. There's no permanent fix without a complete tear down. That's just not feasible. Mold, we have a lot of moisture problems. Mold, we remediate it, it goes back, remediate it goes back. There's moisture, there's water that will in, there's wet. Right next to the building is a river. I mean, it's right there, the stream right next to the building. It's impossible to keep the moisture out. We have mold, we have sewer backups. As firefighters, we have no sprinklers. We advocate for sprinklers everywhere, but we don't have them in any of our buildings. So we tell the public, you have to put sprinklers in, but we don't have them. And on top of that, we have firefighters who are in the living area, in their bunks, windowless bunks with no sprinklers. These aren't things that we would want any of you to have, and we certainly don't want our firefighters to have. And then, again, we have no gender parity and equality for our female firefighters. We're proud we have 3 firefighters who are women on board, and we want to give them their due because they're here and sworn to protect all of you. And, you know, my personal goal is to give them everything they need. They should have the same parity as the male firefighters, and this project will help get them there. So when we come into it, space is going to be a common theme. You know, we talk about space all the time. We have a space limitation issue as well. The trucks from the apparatus base size. Anybody who's seen Old Smoky, the antique fire engine we have, very proud of that truck. It's one of my favorites. Some of our buildings are designed to house that. It's smaller than a modern pickup truck. You know, and our trucks are so much bigger now. We do so much more than fight fires that we did 50 or 60 years ago. Our trucks are bigger. They have to be ready for hazardous materials, technical rescue, structural collapse, all these things that we do. As a matter of fact, some of our buildings were built before we even had an ambulance. We had 3 firefighters working at a time in a building. Now that we have 11 on shift. These buildings were just not designed. They were designed at a different era, and in those eras, they were state of the art. But the fire service has changed. So we run into that issue. We have no space that we can train all of our firefighters in one room. And I'll tell you, everything we do as a fire service is a team effort. There's nothing we can do with less than 2 or 4 firefighters in our job to do it correctly and safely. And we have to train together so we know what one hand is doing, the other hand has to know what the other hand's doing, so we can make seamless, quick reactions. And we have no place to go. You know, we're thankful to Superintendent Cabral for allowing us to use the schools all the time to train, but we come in here when we can and train as a group, but we can't do that in our own buildings. And that will make us a stronger, safer for you organization to be able to do so. And we could go on and on about this, but those are the big points. And I'm going to have Director Field come up now for his.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening. So the DPW is comprised of 17 different buildings and structures scattered on 4 sites throughout town. The main buildings range in age from 71 to 136 years old. These facilities are not safe for the environment, and they're not safe for the staff who work in them. The buildings don't have sprinklers. There is no secondary containment for any of the chemicals, fuels, or oils that we use or store. There is no storage space to house our $9 million vehicle fleet or a wash bay to wash those vehicles. The water division is currently closed to the public because it's not accessible. Water administrative staff are located at the DPW, and water division staff are forced to make multiple trips per day between the buildings to carry out their needed business. At the time DPW on Center Street was built in 1952, there were 13 employees in what was then known as the Highway Department. We currently have 38 full-time employees and are budgeted for 40. Our current combined building space is 22,570 square feet between DPW and water, and we need 61,000. During winter operations, employees work outside, in the elements, often in the dark, mounting plows and equipment. Not only is this inefficient and inconvenient, it's also dangerous for employees. As you heard in the video, during winter operations, you'll find the shop floor covered in melting snow and hydraulic fluid, as we have no active floor drains, I'm sorry. There is inadequate clearance to bring trucks with plows mounted on them into the shop. There just isn't enough room to fit them easily through the doors. And when they're in there, there's inadequate clearance to work on those vehicles. No matter what time of year, there is no operation that we perform that is adequately served by our existing facilities. Whether you're talking about our sign shop, which is an unheated shed, or the repair bays, which lack lifts large enough for our large vehicles or overhead gantry cranes. The existing facilities have served the town and DPW for 71 years, but the current and future DPW employees deserve a safe environment in which to work. Thank you, and I'll turn it back to Town Administrator Reed.
Thank you, Director Field. Thank you to the chiefs. So as you just heard from our department leaders, the conditions of our facilities come with many challenges to the personnel and the operations of these departments. but they also present challenges to the broader community in the form of financial and liability concerns. While these professions are inherently risky, what we do not want is for first responders to risk injury simply by reporting to duty. Because these are 24/7 operations, any injury on duty, like the one that Chief Boone referenced, where somebody's having an unnecessary injury due to the condition of a building, that usually has to be backfilled on overtime at time and a half rate, ultimately costing you, the taxpayers, nearly 3 times the amount of operating funds to deliver the same amount of service that otherwise would have been delivered had that injury not occurred. We don't want our police records and multiple million of these specialized safety equipment and vehicles stored in facilities without sprinklers or outside. And the risk that we face to property loss and other liability is far greater in these facilities than they would be in a modern one. Outside of risk to personnel, these facilities also present challenges to our maintenance and our capital planning capabilities. As it currently stands, nearly 80% of all municipal facilities repair funds are directed towards putting out fires and plugging holes at police, DPW, and the fire department. That means that for every dollar you folks allocate for us in May, every town meeting, 80 cents of that for maintenance is going to reactive and emergency repairs, leaving only 20 cents for Town Hall, Frothingham Hall, and the town pool. And while DPW has and will continue to keep these facilities open, no amount of repair and maintenance is ever going to address the underlying deficiency, which is that we cannot repair our way out of a 1952 design. So how did the Municipal Building Committee design a building project to address so many challenges? During the feasibility process, the Municipal Building Committee and the project team developed a comprehensive program looking at the existing operations of each department to build out a more appropriate facility size, and then from there assessing whether and how they should be located and combined in order to provide the highest level of safety services to the public. Key priorities for Municipal Building Committee included safety for personnel and the public, including an emergency response time study for the fire department. It also considered whether the reuse of existing facilities and sites was possible, and considered how we could leverage modern technologies like solar and geothermal to reduce our carbon footprint and get a more efficient building in the process. I'm committing the #1 sin of public speaking right now by putting a slide on screen in size 6 font with 4,000 words on it. I don't expect you to read it. I can barely read it up here. It's more to illustrate the point that the Municipal Building Committee, and this is a question we've heard a lot as we've gone through this process, why was this selected? Were other options considered? The answer is yes. The Municipal Building Committee looked at 8 different site and building combinations, including exploring reuse of existing sites. Reuse and expansion at Lothrop Street and other existing sites was knocked out of consideration because of their limited size, wetland impacts. As the chief just noted, there is a flowing stream 10 feet from the wall of the fire department. The hazardous materials existing in all of these facilities, which would require costly abatement, and the lack of sewer, which is a really important piece of any building project, particularly for public works. So this led the Municipal Building Committee to unanimously recommend a new build of 3 facilities on 2 sites. And so the recommended solution will put police, fire, and public works at 524 Depot Street and a new fire substation at Main and Washington across from Hilliard's. One of the major benefits of the Depot Street site, in addition to its central access to the community, which will provide excellent fire response times, is that it offers sewer connection to the Mansfield Sewer through the Five Corners Sewer Project, and it is on a portion of land that the town already voted to purchase back in 2014 on acreage devoted to potential future municipal use. The substation across from Hilliard's is on Stonehill property and would provide excellent response capacity to the northern section of town. We've negotiated a 75-year lease for those 5 acres that's at a substantially better rate than alternative methods of acquisition, including purchase or eminent domain. The lease has no rent payment for 7 years, and then in year 8 and thereafter, it's $5,000 per acre per year. That money is reinvested back into the community of Easton, however, because as part of that negotiation, Stonehill has agreed to endow a scholarship with that rental payment that would be devoted to graduates of Easton Public Schools and children of first responders. Here's a 10,000-foot view of those sites. All of these facilities will be built to meet today's needs and prepare our public safety and public works departments to serve Easton now and for the next 50 years. They will unify our 3 emergency response departments on one campus to create a consolidated emergency operations center so that when an emergency happens or something strange like a tornado hitting Easton happens, they're working together hand in hand to respond. Something that we didn't touch on is that while folks, I think, conceptually see Lothrop Street and they think police and fire headquarters, that's not actually true. The headquarters of these 3 departments today are scattered about town. Police are at Lothrop, fire headquarters is Bay Road, and DPW is on Center Street. And while we can do a whole lot with remote technology now, when things go sideways and there's a real emergency, nothing is a substitute for having folks together in a consolidated emergency operations center. And right now we use a lunchroom. And if there's trees down the roads, things of that nature, that slows down the time before we get there and we get that set up. These buildings will meet the most modern energy code and include more than a dozen EV charging ports. They will be solar ready. They'll utilize geothermal technology. They'll be accessible to the public, equitable for all personnel regardless of their gender, and most of all, safe. I'm going to invite the director and the chiefs to touch on how each of these new facilities will help police, fire, and public works operate safely and do their jobs serving you. Director Field.
All right, what you're looking at here is a rendering of the proposed DPW facility, which will be located in the rear of the police and fire buildings on the 524 Depot Street site. So I'll just walk you through a proposed site plan and building layout. Starting with the administrative offices, Area 1, which is on the bottom left of the building, we will have an adequate office space for all division employees, including the water division. This will include office space, male and female lockers, and a lunchroom and training room capable of holding the entire department. To the right of that, Area 2 is a workshop area for each division with adequate storage space for equipment and supplies. To the right of that, Areas 3 and 4 are the vehicle repair bays. Area 3 is for smaller trucks and cruisers, while Area 4 has bays large enough to fit and lift our largest equipment, like our 10-wheel dump trucks, the fire engines, and even the fire ladder. This is designed to accommodate DPW and fire in a shared maintenance area. DPW also maintains police cruisers, and being on the same site with police will be a much more efficient operation. To the right of that, Area 5 is a vehicle wash bay. The biggest fleet issue we have with the DPW is corrosion, and this will help to greatly reduce that problem. Above those areas is the largest area of the facility, Area 6, which is a 26,000 square foot vehicle storage area capable of housing the majority of our fleet. This will prolong the life of our vehicles, increase fuel efficiency, and reduce wear and tear in those vehicles by eliminating cold starts and idling in the winter. This also improves safety by allowing staff to hook up plows and equipment inside in the winter in a safe, well-lit environment. Above that, Area 7 is a canopy area for the storage of vehicle bodies, trailers, and other equipment. And Areas 8 and 9 are properly sized fueling island and salt shed. The existing fuel tanks and salt shed are too small for our current operations. Item 10 on the bottom left of the screen, which is to the left of the staff and public parking areas, is a proposed trailhead, which can be used to access the 146 acres of conservation area on the property. One of the benefits of this project is the opportunity to remove some of the solid waste that exists on the site today. Much of this solid waste is located within or adjacent to the areas being developed as part of this project. And some of that solid waste is actually located in the wetlands. Previous site studies have identified several areas of significant solid waste litter on the site, which we otherwise would not have had the opportunity to or the funding to remove without this project. As part of this project, we're proposing to remediate those impacted areas, restore impacted wetland areas, and actually create more wetland habitat. As I mentioned, this would then allow us to provide community access to the remaining 146 acres of dedicated conservation and recreation area. I'll now turn it over to Chief Boone.
All right, thank you, Director Field. All right, so what we're looking at now on your right would be the police side of the building. So as you look at number one, where this would be our lobby area. So if someone comes in to do any type of business with us, it allows for a private access to a room right off the lobby, something we don't have now. And if you've come into the police station to get a report or talk to someone, oftentimes you may have seen an officer standing on the lobby having, a sensitive conversation with someone. Again, that goes back to some of the problems we have where we just have nowhere to have some confidential conversation with someone.
Number 2, this would be my favorite room, something we talked about. Would be a training and a community room. Like I mentioned earlier, we used to invite folks in the community to come in and reserve the room and use it. This, as being the chief, I would love to invite some of these groups back in to use our room, have a safe space to gather. We have HUGS, we have Wings of Hope, we have a Human Rights Committee, we have the YMCA, we have a lot of groups in town that need a place to meet, and this would provide that. It would also provide a minimum of 50 officers for training, which we desperately need. Number 3 is our desk officer. For those that don't know, we have a sworn officer in the building 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're there for you if you need anything. Again, this is adequate space and allows for some future growth. Number 4, you heard me talk earlier about our detainee area. This is a true isolated detainee area. God forbid we end up in a position where illicit toxin, or in the case we actually had, fentanyl, got airborne. This would truly be isolated in the building and would not broadcast to the rest of the building, making it safer for the detainee and the employees. The remainder of the proposed facility really does address what we have right now, but it takes account for future growth, which we've seen, something that the building in 1960 didn't do. We'd also be free from the problems with sewer backups, failing roof collapsing, and electrical problems that we see. Another thing is, Chief, I worry about is recruitment. And I look around at what goes on in a lot of towns around us, and we're falling behind with our facility. And so what I worry about is when the salaries are comparable and our neighboring agencies are losing out on good candidates that would choose I won't say the town, but someone next to us that just built a new public safety building. So if you were here last fall, we voted out of civil service as a way to recruit better and open it up in a way to diversify our department. So I worry as the chief about losing out on those opportunities. And in reality, we're a 21st century police department. We demand it of ourselves and you demand it of us, but we're in a 20th century building. And this would address that. I'll turn it over to Chief Alexander.
All right, thank you, Chief. The hard part of going last is coming up with something different to say. So, but I will say that we share a lot of the common problems, and the solutions are also as equally beneficial for fire as police. One of the things about this being a public safety building is there's a lot of savings because we share a lot of the same areas, same systems. There's a lot of benefits for you as taxpayers to have us together. Besides our operational side, we share, and that's a savings, because if we were separate, we would have to have these all duplicated. And so we're very happy to have that. We work well with our police department, and to be in this building would be excellent for our operations. So when you see number 5, that's our apparatus bay. So in the video you saw the fire truck against the wall. Well, in reality, we can't even put that fire truck there on a regular basis because it's hard when you go to emergency not to slam that door against the wall. So we have to be selective to put the bigger trucks in the middle of our apparatus bays and the smaller trucks on the outside, which actually doesn't work well all the time. So we have to make sure that we're doing that. Whereas in a new apparatus bay, we'll be able to put trucks wherever they need to go because there'll be the proper clearances, there's size for modern apparatus, and hopefully they don't get much bigger in the future because I don't think we get them down the roads. So we'll have a nice bay to fit for us for now and the future. But when you see number 6, that's the proper living area that would provide for gender equality, proper bunks, proper bathrooms, proper showers, proper privacy, places for us to go in a safe, clean environment. They're separated from the apparatus bay through proper doors, proper airlocks, if you will, to make sure that the chemicals and the toxins and the diesel fumes don't get into the living area. Because right now we live right against the trucks and it just goes right in. You turn the truck off, the fumes go in with you when you go inside and just tracks with you. And we'll be able to stop that. So 7, we'll talk a little bit about this again, is that cancer thing. So that's a big theme because it's a big problem. And we spend a lot of time on that in this presentation, including the next slide, because we want to stop that. So 7 is really focused a lot on the cancer, and you'll see there's some ancillary rooms there where we can storage and where we can work on our air packs and stuff. But the big one is this little cluster that you see now. Right now, when we come in the station, we take our gear off, we wash it, we put it right back, like I said earlier, right back in the bays next to the trucks. That's not what's supposed to happen. So what we would do is we would come in, go through the decon, you see that number 2 in the arrow there, you go into decon, you take everything off, you start its cleaning process, you go into the laundry area with special washer machines that wash the gear and get it properly clean. Now, it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. So we get it very close to perfect, but we put it into a sealed room on your right. If you see that number 5 there, you see the sealed room. That room has doors that seal, and there's fans that suck out so that there's always a negative pressure in the room. So if there's anything left on our gear, gases, off-gassing that comes off our gear, it's taken outside, not into where we live and where we go. So that way that room is sealed, that gear is properly kept, and also bad things from our trucks can't get into that area as well. So that way we don't have the diesel fumes getting on our gear. So when you leave the laundry as a firefighter, you go into the shower area. We don't have that now. You can shower properly, get clean, get those chemicals off your skin, and then leave there, get in a proper uniform, and get back out the door. When we have a fire, trying to get everybody clean and back in service so they can respond to the next emergency is a challenge because we just don't have the facilities, the amount of showers that we need, the ability to move around and have privacy, and so you can take a shower and get clean and not be on top of each other. So we're very happy about this. This is a very exciting thing. This is a modern fire service. We know a lot of this. This is based upon real evidence that this makes a difference for us. And this is going to be in the substation. So this is what the substation would look like. And the layout is very similar, just a smaller version. So you see the apparatus bay is number 2. You'd have your the cancer area, the gear, to protect ourselves from that cancer and get our gear clean is just to the right of that number 2 on your screen. And then the 3 and the 1 are the living area and the entrance to that building. So again, it would provide that gender parity, the equality, the proper separation, the spaces that we need to operate in a happy environment. And I would emphasize what Chief Boone said earlier, that retention is important. And all around us, fire departments have built new stations lately. And it's hard to interview somebody who's excited to come here and then they see these buildings. So although not the only reason to do these, it does make a big difference. I can tell you in my experience in the fire service over the last couple of decades, this makes a difference. So we want to promote those quality candidates and keep them here and have them serve you all for a long, full career. And these type of facilities make that difference. So then I'm going to turn it back over to Chief Boone, talk a little about community and campus safety.
Thanks, Chief. So when this process began a few years ago for me in my current role, and Depot Street was the selected site, one of the most common questions I kept getting was, what's going to happen if you're not on Lothrop Street anymore? And there was a lot of concern about us being, now across from Blanche Ames and how we've always been on Lothrop Street. So I wanted to provide some perspective on how our police operations work. So unlike the fire department, we're not static. We're not based out of the police station waiting for a call to come in and then going from Lothrop Street. We do have 3 shifts, 8 to 4, 4 to 12, and midnight till 8 a.m. And officers will come in, they'll receive their shift assignment, their briefing, and then we deploy them into the field. And if you look behind me on this board, the shaded area is the north sector of town. And we divide the town into north and south. That's how we break up our sectors. So the schools are in the blue area for some perspective. So if we get a call to go to the school, our dispatch center is just sending the north car. They don't call the police station and say who's available, who's across the street. They just dispatch the north car. And that north car can be anywhere in that area. We could be out on Mill Street, we could be out on Chestnut Street, we could be at a car accident and tied up. So if that would happen, we'd be sending the south car, which could be coming from Turnpike and Foundry. So I wanted people to understand that that's a question I got a lot from my family and friends, and I know it's important how the school community feels about our location. And additionally, we did respond to this school last fall for, luckily, a hoax, but we had an active shooter hoax. The first car here was the north car. I responded, Chief Alexander. We set up a command post. We worked well with the school and Dr. Cabral and Ms. Pruitt. But it's important to know that the sector car was the first car there. Now, when I first became chief, one of the things I did do was reach out to Dr. Cabral, and we talked about school safety, the school resource officer program, and how we could better train together with police, fire, and schools. Since then, we do have a full-time school resource officer here on the campus, not part-time like in years past, but actually full-time, 5 days a week. I know everyone's excited about. And most of the people here supported that, and I thank you for helping us get there. And so over that past year, we've done a lot of safety training to help put people's minds at ease. As recently as a few weeks ago, we provided intruder training with the school staff and even worked on some swatting calls. If you know what's going on in the news, that's the newest phase of robocalls and swatting calls targeting high schools. You know, something else I wanted to point out about not just school safety, but community safety. This town has heavily invested in a mental health clinician, and we have a full-time mental health clinician. We have a police officer that works outreach with that person, and we have Captain Tim Vamosi of the fire department who's here, who has a paramedicine program that the fire department runs. And I don't know if everyone knows that, but we are head and shoulders above many of these other towns. I don't know of any town that even has one of those, let alone all three. So we are really doing a lot of things behind the scenes to work on the root causes of these problems before it turns into a violent episode that could ever find its way into a school. So I'm excited about that relationship that we now have with our schools. And we presented this to Dr. Cabral and the school committee, and they supported us wholeheartedly, and we're very thankful. And so to be candid, I went to school here. It's a little different than it was in the 90s. I graduated here. My brother went here. I'm a townie, as townie comes. And I know that the police station being on Lothar Street is somewhat of a permanent landmark, so to speak. So I understand how people feel about it, because I felt the same way growing up. But that being said, as the chief, I wouldn't do anything or support something that I felt compromised the safety of the kids. And I don't. And if I did, I wouldn't have supported this 2 years ago when I got asked. You know, and also, I'm a dad. My son's over at Plant James. And so as a dad and a resident, I would not support this if I was worried about his safety. And I'm not. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So what we're going to talk about now briefly is the concept of where our fire stations are located. So just a quick background on this slide is to demonstrate that, currently there are 3 fire stations, Bay Road, Depot Street, and Lothrop Street. The issue we have is that outside of this project, 2 of our fire stations are staffed with only 2 firefighters each. And I said before, this is a team effort. Everything we do requires 2 at the minimum. Most things require 4, 8, 10, and more firefighters, depending upon the severity of the call. So what we run into is when we go out on a call, we leave large swaths of the town uncovered. There's no one there, and the help has to come from further away. So if you're the second call, which happens all the time, we get simultaneous calls every day, you have to wait longer to get help because that side is uncovered. We don't like that. That's been identified. We want to fix that. So we would love to have a fire station in every corner and next to everybody's house and be there in 5 seconds flat, of course. But we also have to look at the reality as we have the entire town to protect and how best can we do that. So we know that there's a problem with how we respond now. And we're going to talk a little about, so what you see now is a response study. So we hired a professional nationwide, PhD, who does this professionally to analyze what's going on in the current form of what Easton is. The response is now. The south end of town is much busier than it was years ago. So this person came out, didn't just crunch numbers, actually came out, rode around with Deputy Carroll for a whole day, looked at all the important places in town, how our roads are, how the network works, everything, to formulate a strong, robust plan that you can see online that talks about it all and how it really works. Now, I will tell you what you're about to see and what I'm going to describe. I've actually gone out myself and timed it without lights and sirens to see how accurate this map is. And I'll tell you, these maps are accurate. If anything, they're a little conservative, and we can actually probably beat them a little bit. So on the left side, you'll see the purple is what we can get to in 5 minutes. So when you look at the codes that we have, the standard is somewhere between 4 minutes, 6 minutes. for a response time is what our goal is. 4 minutes you typically see in urban environments, cities. You don't typically see a 4-minute response in most smaller suburban or rural towns. 6 minutes, we want to try to do better than 6 minutes, so we thought it would be fair to present you with 5. So we weren't just picking a number that's higher to make the map look better. We wanted to give you an honest, transparent assessment of what we think would be a safe response for you all, and can we do it more consistently. So on the left side, you'll see the purple is larger. That means all 3 stations are staffed, no one's out on a call, and that we can respond immediately for that call that comes in, for that emergency. But remember, the two dots you see on the bottom only have 2 firefighters each, and we can't even fight a fire in a building until we have 4 people there. So that means you've got to wait in those areas for the next firefighters to come. On the right side, if you look, you'll see that that area on the bottom left, that's the south end of town, is white. And the reason it is because when the ambulance goes to the hospital, and nowadays with the lack of Brockton Hospital and the situations, the emergency rooms, if you've heard about those, our ambulances are gone for, it can be an hour and a half, 2 hours or more if they have to go to Boston, which means that area in the south end of town, everything that's in white, the help has to come from somewhere else, either the north end, or it has to come from Norton or Mansfield, depending on the severity of the call, where it's located, and the type. So we know that happens about 25% of the day. Every day, 365 days a year. The amount of hours that that station is uncovered is why you see that map. So as part of the project, we said, well, can we do anything to make that better as part of this project? And the answer is, yes, we can. Now, there's no perfect solution. We know that. And again, we'd love to have a fire station every corner. But can we do something better for all of you? And I truly believe we can, and I think the data shows that if we place 2 stations strategically, one at Daly's Corner and one at 524 Depot, you'll see that the purple is very similar to what it was before. A couple variations, a little bit down 138 towards Rainham, you see a little change there. I tell you, when I drive that all the time from Daly's Corner or from 524 Depot, you can get to that intersection at Foundry and Turnpike in 5 minutes, 4 minutes and 42 seconds to be exact, without lights and sirens. So I think we can do a little better than that map, but I don't want to fool anybody to say there's not a little bit of a change. Anytime you move fire stations, there's a change. But the advantage to this map that you see before you is if that ambulance is out, there are firefighters and paramedics still left in the stations in those areas to come and help you. So if you are the second call, there's going to be someone there to come help you. And that's why this is better. Again, we could have, fire stations everywhere would be great. Everybody wants a police cruiser right next to them when somebody runs that red light and you want them to get caught, right? But we don't always have that, but this will make you all safer. So, I just want to point out that a lot of time and effort went into figuring out this and to make sure that what we present to you is a true depiction of what we can do. And I believe what we're doing here will not only improve the health and quality of our firefighters, make them safer, and make them safer to come out and make you safer. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Town Administrator Reed.
Thank you, Chiefs and Director Field. So as we've heard from each of the department heads, these facilities will substantially improve the safety and effectiveness of these departments. And without touching on every bullet up here, but broad strokes are that with this project, we hope to invert those 4 main challenges we started the discussion with. We'll have enough space for today and tomorrow, safe workspaces with reduced environmental risks, modern, efficient building systems and site infrastructure, and effective, equitable, and accessible space for first responders and the public. We want folks to be able to come into our buildings no matter how they get around. We want to be able to attract and recruit and retain the best employees regardless of their gender. And right now we don't have facilities to do that. These facilities will address that. In this project, despite the large price tag, we'll do this at a lower cost than if we approached it differently. And so we're going to talk about that now. So what would it cost to accomplish this project, and what does that mean for everyone here? We estimate construction at $117 million, with total budget inclusive of design, construction contingency, and soft costs at $150 million. As this slide notes, one of the greatest challenges to municipal facilities projects like this is that unlike public schools, there's no state grant authority like the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or the MSBA, as we've all heard, to offset local costs. This is a major reason why when you drive around Easton, but also much of the Commonwealth, you'll see a lot more public schools that are in a better state of repair or outright new than police, fire, and public works. And that's not because communities don't support these departments. It's because there is an incredibly powerful financial incentive for all of you, for us, for people who can't do every single project at once to look at programs that have matching grants and pursue those. And Easton has been a tremendous beneficiary of that. The MSBA has been used extraordinarily successfully in this community. We've received more than $100 million in funds from that did not have to come through property tax increases. And so when approaching this project, in the absence of such a state grant program, we tried to find other ways that we could offset the cost we can. And so we plan to fund about 14% of this project, or $20 million, using water enterprise funded capital. And we do anticipate some amount, $2 to $4 million of state and federal grants related to energy efficiency for going geothermal. Anytime the town goes through a major capital project, especially one with a price tag of this size, we go through a robust alternatives analysis process to do a gut check of, is there any way, does this have to be the way? Is there not a better way we can accomplish this mission at a lower cost? And so the first stop on that analysis during feasibility is to assess, can we just repair and expand and remediate the existing facilities for less money? And for many of the reasons that were true with the three former elementary schools, the answer here is no. Most importantly, the facilities that we need, more than double the total square footage, can't fit on the existing sites due to small site sizes, wetlands constraints, and other deficiencies. Setting aside that we can't fit on the existing sites, even if we could, and we went through cost estimating to check this out, it would cost slightly more money to go about it that way. Due to the cumulative cost of hazardous material abatement, upgrading and installing all new systems. As we noted, none of these facilities have sprinklers to meet modern code, and then expanding them to meet modern needs. That would also need to be coupled with likely millions in rent, because we would need to bring trailers on site if we were renovating in place for these departments to live and operate out of. These are not folks that can work remotely, so if we're doing a major construction project on a fire station, you need to bring in rental trailers that can fit the fire apparatus, that can fit the personnel, and they would need to live in them for a few years, and you would be spending millions on those temporary facilities that would then be taken away at the end and have you nothing there. So if we approach it this way, we end up spending more money, closer to $160 million, for a worse project, and again, we can't actually fit it. A second layer of analysis is whether we can accomplish this project on a different timetable, through phasing by department, or whether the town should consider just shelving this altogether, waiting for the market to calm down, waiting for the economy to calm down, hoping for better rates, or perhaps a future grant program. And so we looked at that. And so none of us up here are here to tell you that we could predict the future, particularly about the economy, but we can look to the past to inform our choices today. And what we know in Massachusetts is that public construction costs have gone up 70% in 10 years. While we hope that that rapid rate of inflation cools off, we don't have the ability to time the market. Some folks have even suggested there's a recession looming, just wait for it, go at that point. So there's a few important pieces of information to consider there. First is that even in the wake of a 2008 financial collapse, when the broader economy was in dire straits, the cost of public construction in Massachusetts never dropped. Its growth curve slowed down, but it never dropped. So even if we were to try to time the market for such a thing, and I don't much want to come and ask for a tax increase during a recession, or ever, frankly, but we do what we need to do for these projects, we have no reason to expect that that's going to materially drop the cost. Another item that gets raised is, what if we wait for better rates, or we wait for a grant program? And so, when we see a cost like this, which none of us like, just to be frank, I'm sure no one was coming in here tonight, even if you were supportive of this project, saying I'm super excited about a $150 million project. None of us like that number. But right now, and it's baked into the budget, we're carrying an 8% annual cost escalation. And so the need for this project does not go away. And so the decision now is, whether we like or dislike $150 million, we're all going to hate $250 million if we wait. Similarly, attempting to phase the project by department would inarguably make it cheaper, whatever we decided, whichever department we pick. I pick a different one every night I present it. But whichever one we pick today would reduce the cost today. But if we then broke it out and said we'll do one department every 5 years, so we'll do one now, we'll do one in 5 years, we'll do one in 10 years, you're then spending closer to $200 million, and given that these are 30-year bonds, the total of that borrowing accumulates. Eventually, it's all stacked on top of each other, and you're paying a larger project cost and larger tax increase. So whether through delay, waiting for the market, phasing, alternative approaches don't get us to a place where this is cheaper, they drive the cost up, and they also don't address the existing substantial deficiencies that these departments face today and every day. So in order to lessen the financial impact to the extent we can, the town took a two-part approach of exploring revenue opportunities outside of the debt exclusion process and reviewing our debt posture to see if we can time the borrowing for this new project to coincide with the maturity of previously authorized debt. We'll also continue to work with our state and federal partners, including Congressman Lynch, who's joined us tonight and has filed for a federal Homeland Security grant to help pay for the EOC portion of this, and we tremendously appreciate his support in fighting for those funds for this project to offset costs where we can. And that won't change even if this is approved now. Throughout design next year, we'll continue to pursue funds. Locally, by leveraging water enterprise capital, which has a lower unit cost to you as residents than taxes do, and timing the borrowing to come online as Oliver Ames High School and the middle school are paid off, we plan to stretch out those increases over 3 years to achieve a lower total cost than if we were to go forward with an entirely debt-excluded funded project. So the $18 million portion of this project that's attributable to the Water Division's space within the Consolidated Public Works facility would be funded by water rate capital. These investments will be paid as part of your quarterly water bill. With this and the exempt debt, we expect no new costs attached to this project in the current fiscal year. And from there, for the water portion, we would estimate that the quarterly cost for your average family's water bill to start at about $6 per quarter next fiscal year and grow over 3 years and level out around $23 per quarter in fiscal 27. Using the same methodology from the 2019 Blanche Ames project, we estimate that the new taxes associated with this project will cost the median homeowner around $60 per month or $720 per year once it's fully bonded in 2026. As with any financial forecast, these are our best projections. Actuals can and likely will vary slightly based on the timing of bond issuance and market conditions at that time. For condo owners, we expect those costs to be closer to $33 per month or $400 per year come 2026. We appreciate the scale of this request and understand that any tax impact is a deeply personal decision for all voters, and that's why we've launched the tax calculator so you can estimate what it would mean for you and your family. That's at the project website at eastonpsw.com. The town's recommendation to address police, fire, and public works as one project is not only informed by the 2 years of feasibility that we've talked about tonight, but also by looking back at our performance in the 4 years since you entrusted us to build the Blanche Ames Elementary School. 4 years ago, we asked town meeting for a budget of approximately $95 million to construct the new school. And just like tonight's appropriation request, that included construction contingency and other soft costs. A combination of bid savings and unspent contingency brought that project in on schedule and more than $10 million under budget. Many of the same strategies employed to inform that finance plan in 2019, such as timing of our borrowing to coincide with the maturity of previous debt, will be employed with the same project. And so looking back at the actual performance of that project in the 4 years since then, home values in Easton have appreciated 31%. Local project costs came in 24% under budget. We were able to shorten the life of the bonds from 30 to 20 years, in many cases saving $45 million in interest. The impact on the tax rate that you pay today was halved from what we had estimated at about $1.07 per thousand value to 56 cents. And the annual impact on the median tax bill of the Blanche Ames project came in a third lower than what we had forecast in 2019 at about $434, with the actual cost for your median homeowner for that project coming in just shy of $300 per year. These figures are recounted here not to promise a similar outcome should the current project proceed, but because it's important in any major financial decision here to contextualize that the net result of that performance is that the exempt debt tax impact that has occurred since 2019 is materially lower than what was forecast and approved by voters. And while any new exempt debt inarguably increases the tax burden, it's also important to balance that discussion with the fact that these investments, these public investments that you entrust us with, have positive economic benefits as well. Real estate values have surged throughout Massachusetts recently. But what data shows is that Easton's residential property in particular is appreciating at a substantially higher rate than our neighbors, a third faster. And while there are, of course, many factors outside of local control that impact the value of residential property, what we know is that voters of Easton, many in this room, have consistently invested in public infrastructure across water, sewer, transportation, open spaces, preservation, facilities improvements, recreational enhancements, and that values here are growing disproportionately compared to our neighbors. We also understand that growing home equity, while desirable for many, creates real cost burdens for others who are living on fixed incomes. Recognizing the stress that investments like this can place on retirees and those on fixed incomes, voters in 2019 and 20 through town meeting adopted a variety of tax programs, a tax aid assistance fund for seniors and individuals with disabilities, as well as a veterans assistance fund, which provides direct financial assistance to veterans and their dependents. In the years since, we've funded $250,000 in tax relief, heating bill assistance, and other direct financial aid to residents feeling the pinch of the rising cost of living. The Select Board recognized that with this new ask tonight, the town, of course, can and should strive to do more. And that's why the second of only 2 articles in front of you tonight is a petition to the state to adopt a local senior tax relief program specific to Easton, inspired by the existing state circuit breaker tax credit, to offset the cost of this project for qualifying seniors for the 3 years that it comes online. This program, coupled with the Commonwealth's doubling of that circuit breaker tax credit from $1,200 to $2,400 just last month, should provide meaningful assistance to qualifying seniors on fixed incomes. Having covered project costs, we should also discuss the cost of not doing the project. And so the choice that's being considered tonight and on November 4th is not pay for new facilities or pay nothing. It's to pay for new facilities proactively today or to pay more for worse buildings tomorrow. The town will continue to pay operating capital and opportunity costs associated with the existing facilities and their impacts on these departments and this community should this project not proceed tonight. We started tonight's presentation highlighting the impacts, the transformative impacts that public investments like this can have, not only for the folks in these departments, but also for all of Easton. And recognizing that while we have an important role to bring this project to you tonight, that it's ultimately your choice if it proceeds. For the project to advance, voters would need to approve a proposal tonight and on November 4th. If it is not approved at either town meeting or the ballot box, it will not proceed. If it is approved tonight and on the 4th, the Municipal Building Committee will spend a year in detailed design and permitting before putting the project out to bid in fall of 2024. From there, we anticipate construction to begin around February of 2025 with completion and move-in in late 26, early 2027. Concurrent with designing and building the new facilities, the Select Board would then be able to assess the public reuse, such as fields or saving a site for future use, or sale of the existing police, fire, and public works facilities. That would be a public process, and any decision to redevelop any of them for new public use or to sell them would need to come back to you, the voters, at town meeting before that could happen. And with that, the Chief, the Director, and I want to end by thanking you all again for being here tonight. Thank you all to the familiar faces that we see who've come out to some of the presentations so far. Projects like this, projects like Blanche Ames, are only possible thanks to the trust that you place in us, the votes that you take, and we're all very thankful for your engagement and thoughtful consideration of this proposal.
Thank you. Thank you all for making such thoughtful presentations. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns at this time? You can approach the microphone if you do. You have to approach the microphone if you have questions, comments, or concerns.
Good evening. My name is George Wheeler. I live at 10 Lotham, right down the street. I keep going by in
I'm sorry,
Mansfield
can you
and
just
seeing
repeat,
there
I'm sorry, can you repeat your name again? It's 10 Lothrop, I got that, but can you repeat your name
George
again?
Wheeler.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I drive through Mansfield, and obviously I've seen the action they took on their DPW and the firefighters and the police situation all put together down there. Did the committee go to them and get little pointers and pick their brain a little bit of what they went through that we could benefit from?
Yes, we did. So the Municipal Building Committee has toured that facility, and the designers that Easton selected are the ones who actually designed it.
All right, so we did get some tips.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, one more. More important, my granddaughter, 3 years old, wanted to know from the fire chief if they're going to continue in the new location the annual open house at the firehouse.
Well, I'll tell you, I love our open house, and thank you all for coming out this year. We had over 1,000 people come through. It was amazing, and I will tell you that in the new facility, it will be at the Depot Street site. It will be even better. So please come out.
Yes, hi, my name is Brian Sheehan. I live at 27 Cornerstone Drive. I've been a resident of Easton for 26 years. Hey, look, I get it. We all would like new facilities. The town needs new facilities. But the cost of this is simply way too high. And let me just put some things in perspective for everyone. You know, the town of Longmeadow, Massachusetts did a DPW project eight or 9 years ago. The cost, $13 million. Mansfield, we've all been down Route 106. The Mansfield project in 2018 was $35 million, right? Arlington, Massachusetts is doing a project now. And some of this may be apples and oranges, okay, because it's not all the same. $44 million. Yarmouth, a DPW project not too long ago, $16.2 million. Abington, the town of Abington, not far away, their project for police, fire, DPW, $58.3 million, right? And what the taxpayers just told their town was, it's too high, it's too much of a burden on the taxpayers. They're reducing their costs to $38.5 million. We just built a beautiful new school for $100 million. What are we building for $150 million here in Easton? This project is way too high, and I'm voting no against it. And I hope more people here do, because the cost is just out of control. And, you know, you talk about $700 average taxpayer. You know, I can only imagine, you know, I live in a nicer home here in Easton. I can only imagine what's going to happen to my taxes. Please, there are other ways to do this. This $150 million. Brookline built a new high school for $208 million. They did the T-stop there and everything. They didn't get any funding on it. But, you know, it just doesn't make any sense. And down the road, Gillette Stadium, they built that for $325 million. Now, maybe in today's cost, that's $500, right? But still, $150 million is way too much for what we're trying to do here in comparison. Please go back and reconsider. You have a solid no vote for me. I hope more people say this is a wake-up call for everybody here to get a taste of reality. We can't afford this. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Constance Dumoulin. I live at 94 Turnpike Street, Southeast.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Can you pull that microphone down just a little bit more so we can hear you a little better? Oh, okay. Or do it that way.
My name is Constance Dumoulin. I'm 94 Turnpike Street,
Okay.
Southeastern. I've been down there for a good many years. My concern is for the fire station that we just renovated a few years back, and I only live a mile from it, and it's nice to know that if I need the fire department, they'll be right there. So what's going to happen to that building where you just finished it, and is it going to fall by the wayside?
Absolutely. So absolutely, that was renovated a few years back, just before COVID, and it's been done very nice, and we're great to have it. But the issue is the site is so small, and the building isn't of a size that can fit modern apparatus. The bays are the height-wise in them. Can't fit the big trucks in there anymore. There's one bay that does just barely. So the issue is, although the building's nice and it was renovated, it just doesn't fit for what the modern service is and what we need to do in this project design. That said, beautiful building, a lot of history. We're going to keep it in the family. It's going to be utilized for emergency management, our CERT team, a few other community events that we can do in there. We're going to keep that building alive and part of the fire family. And it'll always be there as a resource in the future for any future needs.
And I would just like to add to that was renovated by a private developer as part of a developer's agreement, so that was something we took a look at as part of a project. I would just like to address and say I appreciate the feedback on price tag. I'll be honest, I got vertigo the first time I saw it. Actually, I had a colleague in town hall call me and say, "You're going to get run out of town." So I appreciated that vote of confidence. But and I most appreciate you saying these are apples to oranges, because that was largely true. This process went through value engineering, value management, that cut out whatever square footage that they possibly could in these facilities. Many of the examples were for one of these three departments. I appreciate Blanche Ames being noted. $100 million, it came in closer in the 80s, which is great. If Blanche Ames were built today, and we know this because the Massachusetts School Building Authority mandates that the cost per square foot is made public, that would have been a $150 million proposal. So thankfully, because some of this same feedback happened, believe us, when Blanche Ames started, when that started back in 2017 with a letter of interest to the MSBA, it was to repair only Center School. And the price tag was in the 30s. And it was not without substantial consideration, years of consideration by your neighbors, which is important, right? This isn't a project that I decide we should do from town hall and that's it. Your neighbors on the municipal building committee have spent 2 years on this. So when what is now Blanche Ames started 6 years ago, being invited into a grant program by the state, it was just to fix Center School. And we went through those difficult decisions, which I respect. Those are real, those are hard choices. We noted, we're not here to try to persuade anyone out of their personal financial situation. Believe us, if we could make that number smaller, we would. But imagine, had we leaned on the urge when Blanche Ames was before you to say, this is simply too large, this is trying to do too much. Imagine children still going to Center School. So we do. None of us here like seeing the budget that size. We don't. But that process started looking at a more narrow, cheaper, in a limited sense project. And had we not done that, we would be spending 50, 60, 70 million per school over the course of many years. Or had Blanche Ames been delayed in 2019, because at that time, and still, unless and until this moves forward, the largest project this community has ever been asked to think about or support, had that legitimate response of this is simply too much, it probably wouldn't have moved forward at all. So I would just ask people to consider that. These are not kind of academic hypotheticals. These are real choices that you've all participated in before, that your neighbors have had a substantial role in. And had Blanche Ames been delayed, it would be $150 million, and this project would be 10 years down the road, probably in the 200s.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. Tom Broussard, 28 Armour Lane. I'd like to thank you for the presentation tonight and for all the years and months of effort that we asked you to put into this through the feasibility to explore this issue, this very important issue for us. I'd like to start off by urging my fellow residents to support this initiative. I think it makes economic sense. This project will not become cheaper. And as somebody who has managed large capital budgets, I can tell you that over the last several years, the cost of supplies and the cost of labor to actually do these projects has increased this amount. It is that dramatic. I also think the investment in our town services and safety reflects Easton's values, alongside with how we care for our children in schools, for how we care about open space recreation, and certainly how we care about our historical features. I believe passionately that it's these values that make our community so special. It's why other people want to move here, and I think that's the primary driver of why our home values have increased more than our surrounding communities, as you showed on that slide. Lastly, I'll close with saying that the Water Department, the DPW, Police, and Fire always answer our calls. I again urge my fellow residents to support them, answer the call tonight, and to vote yes.
Leonardo Bellini, 752 Foundry Street, Southeastern. First, I want to start by thanking the police chief and the fire chief and the DPW chief, because you guys do a phenomenal job. Every one of your departments does. You guys deeply deserve everything and more. With that said, I do come from a financial background. And as we all know, since COVID hit, prices on everything have skyrocketed. It is not just that we're looking at our taxes increase, we're looking at the water bill increase. The trash removal has already increased. Food has increased. Gasoline for your cars has increased. Home heating oil and natural gas for your homes has increased. And all this compounded increase is making a huge hit on everybody's wallet. And I understand fully the impact of this $150 million taxes here, right? The budget is large. The schools, yes. Let's talk about the school, Blanche, right? When that project started, it was being pitched as we're bringing all of the kids together onto one campus right across the street from all our first responders. I called it as soon as that was said. Immediately after that project's done, they're going to come and tell us that they want to move the first responders. Immediately. You say that the school came under budget. Well, that's fantastic. But when we did that tour that you put pictures up there during your presentation on that open house, the people giving the tours were already telling us that they're already short on classrooms, and they have to get creative on how they organize the spaces and use the spaces to allocate for the increase in student enrollment. Well, why did that happen? Because we have this huge development that just took place there over on Renker Drive next to the Target, right? And that brought in a bunch of tax revenue, right? But it also brought in extra kids. Things start planning, but they're taking too long. Now, are we talking that this is going to last 50 years and then again we're going to get hit with taxes? I mean, I hope I'm not around in 50 years, okay? I'm already old enough. My back hurts just standing here. All right? Yeah, right? But the reality is, guys, I want to give this to you. I want to. You guys have responded to my home when I was a newlywed and my wife had an episode in the bathroom. And I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I get emotional every time I think about that. And I thank you. And the police were the first ones there. God bless them all. Okay? But at the same time, I have to think that I have to put food on my table for my children. And that's what breaks my heart. So while I want to vote yes, unfortunately, due to the financial times, and I really hope that the administration at the federal level keeps working to reduce those tax rates, to reduce the inflation rate that the Federal Reserve is trying to control, okay? And I hope that makes an impact and that we could afford it. The gas prices do come down as the administration is working to do. But at this very moment, times are very, very tough. And I make a good living, okay? I'm in finance and I'm not entry level, okay? I get to work from home 5 days a week. I know I'm blessed. And even with all my blessings, finances are getting very, very tough. Okay, you mentioned how the value of our homes has all increased. that means that we're already automatically paying more in taxes because the value's gone up. Even though you're not looking to sell, you're paying more for that same house. So you may be in a fixed rate mortgage, but your monthly bills have gone up for your house. Okay? That's one. And then just you can keep going on. And everybody's facing a very tough financial time. And at this time, I have to vote no. And it breaks my heart because I do love each and every one of you and what you do for this country and what you do for this community. And I appreciate your oath and your hard work and your commitment. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, one more from this side, then we'll move over here. Go ahead.
Me? Okay. Yep. Hi, Christina Rafford, 42 Galahad Way. I'm the chair of the Easton Green Communities Committee, and so I have a slightly different perspective of how we looked at this project. We initially had concerns about the project and wanted to make sure it was being designed with sustainability and energy efficiency in mind. We also wanted to better understand why renovation or restoration of current buildings was not feasible. So we had an hour-long meeting with some of the people involved in this project, and we learned that many of the current buildings cannot be updated enough to make them suitable for the next 50 years and beyond. From unsafe storage to inadequate drainage to the over-reliance on fossil fuels, as well as crowded and unsafe working conditions for many of our public employees, it was clear to us that there is a need for new facilities. Our committee was pleased to hear that these new buildings will utilize the latest in sustainable and renewable energy sources and will take advantage of programs to help offset the cost to Easton's residents. The buildings will be designed to protect our water table from contamination and to reduce the amount of water used or wasted, and it will be poised for the future as more of our fleet moves to electric vehicles. Any project of this scale must fit within budget limits, and they will not hit every single checkbox we as a committee would have liked, but we feel that we do support this project because it is a huge improvement over where we are now and will position us better for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go over on this side.
Thank you. Kyla Bennett, 2 Chickadee Lane. Sorry. Nobody likes the price tag, but you can't put a price on our health and safety. And without the police and the fire and the DPW in these changing climate times where we have tornado warnings and rain bombs and all sorts of weather incidents that we need the DPW, we need the police, we need the fire. Their working conditions are deplorable. We need to do this. We need to bite the bullet and do this. And I'm urging everybody here to vote yes. But I just have one quick favor. I would like to ask Connor that the town consider, since this won't be done until 2027, I'm really glad you have that decon room with the firefighter gear, because you guys are getting cancer not necessarily from the stuff that's burning, but from your gear. And studies have shown that the PFAS coming off those turnout gear, you're breathing it when you're in the station. So it's great it's in that room, but I don't like the fact that it is going to be filtered outside, particularly when we have a zone 2 right across the street. So my request is this: can we please try to get new turnout gear for all the firefighters that's PFAS free? Steadfast is working on that. I'd like that to be part of this, or at least to start thinking about that now, so that when you move into the new fire station, we can have PFAS free gear for all of the firefighters. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Just one point to the firefighter gear. We currently now have our newest gear, which is the lowest PFAS gear you can buy. And that's thanks to all of you. And as the regulations change outside of Easton, there's regulations that restrict that. As soon as that gear is completely PFAS free, I'm going to be back asking for it, and I hope to have all of your support. And thank you for continued support to make us safer.
Thank you, Chief. Sir.
My name is Dick Daly. It's not my first town meeting. I'd like to thank all of the presenters tonight. Phenomenal job of getting up and making a presentation. Having said that, politely and respectfully, I'd like to say I disagree with the timing of this project. And I disagree with it. If it had been 5 years ago when things looked economically pretty favorable, I would be in favor, have been in favor of this project. But understanding what's happened in the last 3 or 4 years, understanding what's happening now, understanding where our budget's going to be next year, I'm sure the school department's going to be looking for a significant increase dealing with multicultural and multilingual students who are coming in via the immigration system. That's getting very costly for towns. That's going to impact our tax rate. Everything else is impacting our tax rate, the cost of fuel, the cost of gas, the cost of electricity, as we presumably are looking to go to an all-electric society. Another problem I have is with the next item to be voted on, which purports to give senior citizens, or some senior citizens, a break on their taxes.
Sir, if I'm going to stop you right there because we're not on that article yet.
Well, that may be, but it was referenced by the town administrator in his presentation, and that's what I'd like to address. All right. What I'd like to address about it is you're offering to give a small $1,000, $1,200, maybe $2,000 break to certain individuals. Very few individuals will qualify for that in this town. Additionally, this bond issue is for 30 years. This rule expires 3 years from the date we pass it. If we pass it tonight, it expires in 3 years. So after 3 years, there's no protection for those people. And that amount of money that they're going to have to pay, in addition to all the other increasing costs of government, are going to be significant. Timing is everything in life. I think the timing of this is unfortunate. I think you all did a great job making your presentation, but respectfully, I don't think it's the time for the taxpayers in the town of Easton. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'd like to respond to a few of the comments relating to the town's operating budget, budget increases, school budget. Easton is a minimum aid community. We receive the minimum increase in funding from the state every year allowed by law, which is $30 to $60 per student every year. And despite that, Easton has not sought an operating override since 2006. The increases of that were almost entirely obliterated a year later by the financial crisis. Average increases the school department usually is coming to our office and then town meeting with are 2-3%. We don't have a school department asking for 10% increases. We certainly don't have a school department asking for 10% increases based on migration. And, you know, to another point made about apartments or density, you know, we have public data on the number of students in these schools. There is not a budget crisis at the schools associated with some surge of student enrollment based on apartments existing in Easton. That's demonstrably untrue, despite growing our housing. The number of students in the public school system has continued to decline here and everywhere else, not because there's anything wrong with Easton. This is a great community, but because many folks, you know, current family age folks simply cannot afford to have many kids. So it's important that we work with the facts here about the pressures these projects create. And again, no one here is going to try and deny that we have competing imperatives. We want to keep Easton a welcoming and strong and thriving community for everyone who's here right now. But part of that is making sure that we're providing adequate facilities for these essential departments who respond and take care of this community. The note about timing, I agree. We wish it was 4 years ago, but we don't have control over that. We don't have reason to think that this will go, we know it won't go away, right? This is not something that goes away by delay, and we have very good reason informed by history to assume that all of the pressures that you very accurately and poignantly touched on that are real, those won't go away either. Maybe the growth curve slows down, but if you work in finance, I think you would agree that if it goes the opposite direction too hard and we're in a deflationary cycle, we have a whole nother set of major problems, and then that would be legitimate pretext to say no too. So there's not going to be an easy time to say yes to do this project, and we don't ask that lightly. But somebody at a community meeting made a very similar point, because we know this is true. The cost of all sorts of other things going on. My home insurance went up $500 for nothing. I don't know why. They offered to stop covering fuel oil spills, which can't do that. We get that. But we would be negligent in our responsibility to you if we looked at the reality that we're facing and said, this is a hard ask, this is a hard problem. We shouldn't even let you choose. Because voters did choose to fund the feasibility process 2 years ago. And so if we just looked at it and said, well, this metric is hard, this good has gone up, so voters don't even get to make that choice, then 6 or 10 years from now, when somebody is here asking for $200 million, a very legitimate question would be, why was this not asked for sooner? We don't know what today's economy looks like in the lens of 2019. At that time, a lot of these same discussions were happening, although interest was historically low. That the projects we've done were costly, and so I appreciate all those facts. We appreciate those things, but I don't see how waiting resolves those underlying issues. Thank you.
Sir.
Good evening. Can you hear me or not?
Yep.
Everybody says yeah. I'm Rick Martin. I live on Martin Terrace in Easton. Looking around here this evening, I was shocked to discover that I've lived here longer than most of you people are alive. And that doesn't mean anything to me, except that I built my own house 40, 50 years ago, something like that. And it's very nice. I was a principal in an architectural engineering firm, and I could do a lot of stuff with my own people. But now I can't afford my own house. Not to buy it if I had to, but just to stay there. Every time I get a tax bill, it seems, it's gone up $200, or as you people would say, oh, it's only going up $400. Well, now you're talking about $700. There are an awful lot of people that have lived here in Easton a long time, enjoy the town, like to just stay in their own house and get by. And believe me, I understand how you people feel up there, because I've been on the Board of Selectmen. I understand a lot of these issues are not easy. You have to make tough decisions and sell it so that you can keep going on. But I would like to ask if the maintenance operation cost and the moving costs are included in all the numbers you've given us tonight. And will the new buildings cost of operation and maintenance be significantly different than they are in the older buildings? And if so, where are those dollars?
So the cost of moving from one to the other, if this is approved, is included in the budget of this project. As far as the maintenance for the new facilities, we would redirect funds that we're currently spending on these emergency repairs. Sort of like the energy efficiency challenge with these, they would be substantially more efficient. But the likelihood is you're not necessarily spending less on electricity, because right now you have buildings that a lot of the outlets just don't even turn on. So we would redirect those funds, but we're not here to suggest that the facilities will be in a situation where they wouldn't need upkeep, because they would, especially as time goes on, as with any facility, or that we could offset the cost with that.
As I said, I'm older than most of you people, but so the 30-year bond means very little to me. And I understand how difficult this is. It really is. And I favor doing something like this, but I do not favor picking my pocket for another $800 a year. That's a lot of money for many, many people. And for somebody said it tonight, oh, you should feel good. The value of your house has gone up. All that means to me is my taxes have gone up. My disposable income has gone down. I can less and less afford to live in a town that I really like. But you got to think about not everybody just moved here from a better off town than we have here and have lots of money to spend. A good example is the pickleball court. Somebody got together and decided that all of us are going to pay for a pickleball court for 10 or 15 people who can afford it themselves. You can't think like that when it comes to spending money. You really can't. And as I said, I'm not going to be around much longer. I hope a few more weeks anyway. So it's not going to affect me, but it affects the way you affect the value of the town. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Chris Champa at 38 Guinevere Road. And I had, thank you for the presentation, very compelling. Like many people tonight, my only heart palpitations is price tag. But I did have one request and I had two questions. My request is for a secret ballot motion because a lot of people that do have concerns financially, it's kind of unfair that you have to be like, hey, I think it would be appropriate for people to have the privacy and the dignity to be able to have a secret ballot on this issue.
I'm just going to stop you there for 1 second.
Sure.
Can you just repeat your name for me?
Oh, of course. Christine Champa.
And it's Guinevere.
And it would also encourage diversity in the town and being equitable, acknowledging that not everybody is crazy. Anyway, so my two questions are just purely out of curiosity because everyone else has said things otherwise. One of them was just about what we're doing. We've talked about how to save money and make this less expensive. My question was on the other side, how much are we able to get from commercial taxes, for example, the new Amazon building that's being built where the Gulf country was. My second question was about the PFAS in the water, if that's also part of this improvement that we would be able to address that. And thank you very much in advance for your responding.
Thank you. So as far as commercial taxation, in the past 10 years, most, or not most, a larger percentage of our new growth, so that's new taxable property, has been from commercial, industrial, personal property than has been the historic average. So in Easton, that's about 90-10. So 90% of the property value in this community is residential, 10% is commercial. So we've built a variety of sewer systems, things like that in the past few years. And so each individual year we do see closer to 15, sometimes 30, 45% of that growth is attributable to commercial, industrial, and personal property. Over time, though, it still kind of keeps going back. There's a lot of inertia around that 90-10 split because that's only one component of taxation. The other is value, market value. And as everyone here has noted, residential values are going up really dramatically at a faster rate for the existing property just appreciating by virtue of existing than you see for commercial. So in each individual year, we're making some progress in those areas, but the residential values are growing so fast that it's often eclipsing that. As far as PFAS, that was voted on by folks here and funded, and one of the 3 plants is operational and online now. The other 2 should be online in 2 months.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so we need to address the secret ballot issue that you raised at the very beginning. So since it's been raised, if there are 29 other people in the room who want a secret ballot, I need you to stand. Probably the easiest way is for you to stand and we can count. Okay, so there's definitely more than 29 people who want a secret ballot. So when we get to the vote, that's the way that we're going to do it, is by way of secret ballot. Okay, so next.
Dale Carrister, 21 South Street. First of all, I want to say I totally respect when folks are raising issues about the cost to them of additional tax increases, and it's a very personal decision for everybody, and I totally respect that. I wanted to address a different concern, which is for those who are raising issues about whether this is the lowest cost we can do, or whether this is the proper location for it, whether we're providing enough coverage, whether there's a problem with reducing from 3 to 2 the fire stations. And I want to just harken back to a few years ago when the town put in place the going forward with the sewer project. Some of you may recall I've spoken at a town meeting before about this. I lived down in the Furnace Village area, and we formed a neighborhood group, and we initially had a group of about 25 to 30 neighbors who got together and eventually formed a group of about 160 to 170 folks, including the business owners, the condo owners, and the single-family homeowners. And we went into the town officials ready to have our pitchforks and torches ready to go, and we walked into the office meeting with Connor Reed, then Assistant Michael Blanchard, and Stephanie Danielson. Well, it turns out that they were already 2 steps ahead of us, understood the cost concerns that we were raising, and had ideas in mind with a district improvement financing program and also a MassWorks grant. The long and short of it is the town officials who I've now had an opportunity to work with on quite a number of matters over the years have always had our best interests at heart. I've attended a number of the meetings about this project over the course of the last year, and I've heard folks who have raised concerns and questions, including at a forum that we hosted where we had about 25 to 30 of the residents down the Furnace Village area. And folks are raising a number of the concerns here, and I've heard the town officials listen to those concerns and adapt. So for that reason, I very much have a trust in our town officials and the decisions that they're making, and have no doubt that they have done the best possible to arrive at a project that is the most suitable for our town, and for that reason, among others, I'm voting in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to switch over here.
Hi, Kathy Adler, 459 Bay Road. In the almost 30 years that I've lived in Easton, I've worked on a few projects for the town, including being co-chair for the master plan, chairing the precursor to the Human Rights Committee. And in doing that work, I've had to go to our public safety and public services folks to have conversations. And actually, we used to meet in the police station when we were trying to do the human rights work. So I have a real respect for the public safety and public service people in the town. And the interactions I've had with them over the years have always been so professional. We have really good professional people working for us in this town. I would like to see the facilities that they work in be as safe and as professionally viewed as the people that are working in those buildings. So I would vote for this. One more thing I wanted to say is I'm the current chair of the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee in Easton. So I don't know what the gentleman's name was that was previously talking, but we do have problems in Easton around people being able to afford to stay either in the homes that they're in or move into, downsize, be able to downsize. But as 2 things struck me during this presentation when I think about the age-friendly town work that's being done. One is, I would really rather see the DPW working on modifications to the infrastructure in town to make it more age-friendly than having to deal with sewage problems in the fire department. So I would like to see that happen. And also, the fire chief talked about the distribution of coverage and how that would change and how it would actually be better after this project was in place. So judging from an age-friendly perspective, I would like to see that plan go forward also. So I just want to thank you for being as professional as you are, and I would urge everyone to vote yes on this project.
Thank you.
Hello, Ian Howkert, 10 Old Stable Lane. I want to thank the police and fire and Public Works for coming out and making this presentation. I think it was very compelling. This is obviously not an easy decision. I hear the words of the folks that feel like this is just going to be too difficult to do from a financial perspective, and everybody's entitled to make that decision. Everybody has to make the best financial decision for themselves and for their family. The reality is, I see it as this is never going to get cheaper. It's never going to be cheaper. If we want to do something to help police, fire, and Public Works, there's not going to be a better year to do it when the finances are working more in our favor. Nothing's getting cheaper. And I guess I would just ask everybody to consider, as we're thinking about the cost of this, to also ask yourselves a question. As we saw the pictures on the slides here, maybe some folks have had a chance to tour these facilities. If you had a child that was of age to go work for the police department or the fire department, would you want them to work in these facilities under these conditions? Would you suggest that they do that? I wouldn't. Cramped quarters, poor ventilation, sewage backing up into the showers. I wouldn't ask my children to do this. I don't think any of you would either. And even though this is an expensive project, we can't continue year after year to ask our existing employees and to try to get new recruits to come in and work under these conditions that we would never want to work in ourselves or have our own children do. So despite the cost, I would ask that we pass this motion and that we build these facilities for these people who take such good care of us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to stay over here because you've been waiting for a while.
Tom Domenico, 73 Brentwood Drive, and I'm coming at this from a slightly different direction. So I do have some economic comments, but really what I'm thinking about is the proximity to the schools. So there's a little bit of sort of my background in the notes that I have written here, and so I don't seem like just some guy walking in off the cuff here. So in a nutshell, I've had the opportunity to be on all three sides of this table through the course of my career. So I worked for 26 years at Logan Airport in a public safety and security position. I served on the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee in another town prior to relocating to Easton. And I've been responsible for pitching these types of projects to the Massport Board of Directors at Logan Airport. And everything changed on 9/11. I guess, in a nutshell. So I go back to that morning. I was much younger then. When I pulled into that garage, the focus of that airport and our mission turned on a dime. And the goal was to never have anything like that occur again. And so that meant that we would do things like have the largest active shooter drill ever held at an airport worldwide. And that we would have a daily security meeting with all the stakeholders, from the state police to federal agencies to airline management. And so a lot of the focus evolved. Chief, as you know, the threats have evolved. We've gone from traditional threats to active shooters to vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices to now vehicle rammings are common. And every day we turned on a dime, whether it was putting bollards in front of the terminals, whether it was doing further training with surrounding agencies who would respond for mutual aid. So when I look at this project from a pure practicality perspective, I'm going to have to disagree that the people in that station wouldn't respond, because I know they would. I know you would. And I know that being seconds away means everything. Because in the end, when you look at these active shooter situations, when unfortunately they occur, the bottom line is the only thing that stops the killing is bullets coming in the opposite direction. So the sooner you can get somebody there, a good guy, and engage that threat, the less killing there will be. So we happen to be in a perfect situation right now, not facility-wise. I'm not going to argue that these don't need to be replaced, believe me. But the reality is we have a deterrent sitting across the street from the brand new $90 million elementary school. So anybody who has visions of doing something like this has to get over that hurdle. They don't necessarily know that there's extra cruisers for details, or the court officer isn't really in that day because he worked overtime the night before. All they know is there's a police presence there. And that police presence is something they're going to need to contend with when they do their meat-headed thing they're deciding to do. I also know that as soon as that call comes in, the chief, any detectives in the station, the deputy chief, the firearms licensing officer, they are all going to get up immediately and run to that threat. because the SOPs have changed. Even just a decade ago, it was arrive on scene, wait for 3 or 4 guys, go in a diamond pattern, and work to clear the building. And then that evolved. Unfortunately, there was an incident. Okay, wait for another guy, 2 people go in. And now the situation, as you saw in Nashville, was no. As you arrive, you go in the building, you engage the threat, and you neutralize it. So when I look at places like Uvalde, where they fell flat on their face because of the delays, and there are families that have been changed and destroyed forever, the reality is seconds matter. And so my problem with this proposal is we're relocating the good guys 2 miles away. And so ultimately, at the airport, we did things like tactical medical training for the entire fire department to the point where they go in with law enforcement teams and get victims out before the incident is even secured. And that's what's going to happen here. And having these guys in close proximity to the schools makes a big difference. It may not seem it. You know, they have lights and siren. They can get there in 2 minutes. You can do a lot of damage in 2 minutes. Now, my kid's a senior in the high school. Hopefully nothing ever happens in the town, but I do think that's a consideration. So my hope, and I realize that you've studied it, is that we would consider a replacement of the existing facility, even if it's just a new PD headquarters, where it is across from the existing Blanche Ames School, maybe relocate the DPW to this location, and then relocate the fire headquarters potentially to where DPW is. I get you had a bunch of meetings over a bunch of years, and you guys arrived at this conclusion. I wasn't in them, I'm sorry. But based upon my experience, I think we're losing the advantage we have of the deterrent of having that station there, and we're absolutely positively losing the speed of response to anything that happens at those schools. Those schools are the most important thing in this town. They are the most likely target in this town. And it's our responsibility to ensure that we can safeguard them. And frankly, if this proposal was $180 million and it kept these resources close to these facilities, I would hold my nose, forget about the 8% interest rate, forget about the fact that I'm going to go to the gas station, I have to throw up after I fill up my truck. I would forget about all of that stuff and I would vote for it. Because at some point, that's the most important thing we have in this community is the kids. And again, my kids are out. So these are other people's kids I'm talking about. And so I honestly would have hoped that we would have found a way to make it work. We're buying a brand new tower ladder that can reach extended floors on buildings. So, okay, if we can't go out because of wetlands, why can't we go up? I mean, a police station can be 3 or 4 stories. They're that way all over the place. So I would just hope when we consider this that we evaluate the options, because I can't support something that puts us in a weaker position to respond to a threat at any of these facilities, which, as everybody knows, unfortunately, it might be swatting now. It's constant. It's not going to stop. We're in like this delirious phase of the country, and we just have to deal with it. And I would rather have the resources most capable, closest, and most efficiently able to respond.
No, thank you, and I completely understand all the training and the sentiment. You know, the one thing I wanted to point out, I'm in the station during the day, and we can have a detective, right? But I'm not always in the station. I could be at town hall. I wouldn't want people to think that I'm the first line of defense if everybody else is out of the building. I just wanted to make that very clear. I know you understand it. You know, the other thing is, I've heard the deterrent thing. I don't know, I wouldn't try to say I know the stats on it, but I think if someone is in that frame of mind to go and do something like that, I don't know if our building there is going to stop them. I just don't know. I think it's more of a mental health thing. I don't know. But fixing where we are was an option. I wasn't part of the initial talks, but it was an option. It was deemed too small, and I could, defer to some of the team here. It's about 1/3 of the size we need, which was a problem. And the renovation cost, once we hit, I believe, 30%-ish, was going to trigger a whole host of other things. So it turned into a financial issue. So I hope that addresses it.
I would just like to add to that about what we looked at, and we did. There are folks in this room who feel, as we heard, if they were designing it, they would build a 3-story tall police station on Lothrop, put fire somewhere else, put DPW somewhere else, and even if it was 180, 200 million, it doesn't matter. But as we're also hearing from other folks, that's not a universally held reality for people's finances. And so, as with any project, it's a balance. The Chief touched on it in his prepared remarks, recognizing that responding to the campus is not a function of where Lothrop Street is. It's correct that if there's a detective, there's someone in there, they'll suit up, they'll get across the street. But there have been multiple either bomb scares, hoaxes, medicals, other emergencies on campus that happen. And in all of those instances, the officer on scene, as the department is trained to operate, was the patrol or the school resource officer's office you all walked by on your way in first. Occasionally, if the chief's there, he'll be there. We understand how sensitive it is. I wish I'm sure we all wish we can go back before 9/11. We all wish we can go before Columbine. As a parent, it makes me sick. But this is not as simple as if a police department is at Lothrop, everyone is safe. There's no perfect security. They do train. They do the exact type of training that you're referring to. But while folks are free to exercise their right and vote no, whether financial or because they have a concern about the location, much as the chief made the point that it's important to contextualize that there is not a large number of police in the station for something terrible to happen and respond. It is also not the case that if we say no, the station existing guarantees that nothing bad could happen. So I think that's it's a very difficult thing to talk about and to think about, but that's the reality of it, so thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Alicia Cabral, Superintendent of Schools, and certainly the decision is yours, but it should be based on factual information. And so as it pertains to the school system, I would just like to give you factual information of pieces that came up this evening. We do receive a lot of response, whether it's from an ambulance or a cruiser or the fire department, and all of them, we work very closely together, and I can't recollect a time we've ever had a response directly from the station. We get very quick response times, regardless of where the cars are in the town. In addition, we do more training. There are 351 communities and towns in Massachusetts, and I know all of the superintendents. And we do more for our town in terms of cooperation and training with our first responders than any that I've spoken to personally. We don't talk about them because we don't want the general public to be aware of many of the details, but our school facilities are all top-notch in terms of security. We are in a project right now to improve, to stay ahead of the curve on our security. We train regularly. We have responses that are second to none. And I'm responsible, literally, for 4,000 souls a day. And I feel personally very safe where we are, not because there's a station across the street, but because I know exactly what the response is going to be, and I know the communication system that we have in place, and I know how our faculty is trained. I don't know if any of you have traveled down Lothrop Street during arrival, dismissal, or any of our events. That is not the best place for an emergency response in your town. I am responsible for children 10 months of the year, 5 days a week, but they live in homes all across the town. And if that station is responding to emergency at your home or even at our schools, and it's during any of those times, There is a lockup that I wouldn't want if someone was responding to my home. And there aren't lights there on Daly's Corner, and when they do stations now, they have automatic lights that shut down the street so the apparatus can get out and respond. I also worry about the children when they're at home and seeing what happens when someone's trying to respond from that station when you cannot get down that street. It compromises it compromises a wait time, and that's for any resident in town. In terms of reports that our project is now too small, or that we tried to sell the project as being across from the police station, I think that between myself and working in cooperation with Town Administrator Reed, we created every single presentation that was made, and none of them had anything about the police station being there or the fire station being there. I never made a presentation that said that. I'm aware and have been aware by working with them for a long time that our response comes from around the town, and we're very happy with that response. We also haven't outgrown the school. We've increased our enrollment, which is wonderful, but what people may have heard is that we don't have room for storage. We had to work with a grant funder, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, which provided 52% of all the eligible expenses of that building, which was wonderful, but they don't pay for storage. And so, trying to be mindful of taxpayer dollars, we didn't add that expense because it would have to come from taxpayers. So we have classrooms that are being used for storage, but we're not at a shortage of classrooms. And we want more children to come. We get more money from the government when children come, and we're in the business of taking in children. So we're happy when developments come into Easton and they come into our school system. And that's why we made them with extra classrooms, so that we could have them come into the school and increase our enrollment. In terms of other things that were mentioned, like the migrants, the federal government gives funding for migrants and to educate migrant children. We don't qualify because we don't have enough of them. So we haven't had a huge influx of students to create a burden on our schools. Our schools are doing just fine. But the reason they're doing that fine is because that well is because of all of you. And you had the foresight to be prepared for the fact that they were in really squalid conditions. And the professionals that you have responding, I can't say anything about the cost or them responding to my home. But I can say that I'm 100% confident about them responding to the schools, if that is one of your concerns. And I know all of our security plans, and I know all the drills that we've done. And having just completed a project that was the consolidation of 3 schools into 1, I am very well aware of the efficiencies that come from doing it all at once. And this project, just like the Blanche Ames Elementary School, shows that the repairs that you're going to be forced to do are going to be more expensive than the actual building. So one of them has to be paid for, but one of them gives you faster response times for your families and provides humane conditions for those who serve.
I think you were standing there a little longer. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I'm Elizabeth Starr, and I live at 11 Baltic Avenue. And first of all, thank you to our fire, police, and DPW. Thank you for being first responders. We love you. And it's time. This has to be done. In order for us, in the hierarchy of needs, safety is at the most important. For our children, for all of us in this room, and for the people that are waiting home for us, sitting at kitchen tables and on couches and maybe watching this, we have to protect them. And in order to be able to do that, we have to help our best do their best. And it's time. Taking that visual tour right here and also seeing, firsthand what are important workers who help keep us alive, how they need to, important conditions and that they can work in to do their best work. We need to vote for this. It's not ever going to be any cheaper. And while I appreciate all the opinions, great ideas too, and even if it is heartbreaking, sometimes we have to go through some heartbreak because it's real and it's important, and we learn from it and we grow and we save ourselves. I am no math aficionado, but I can bet that about 100% of the people in this room have either needed care from a first responder or have a family member that have. So let's support them. We need to do this now, please. Thank you.
So let me just say before the next person speaks that we appreciate all the comments and the concerns, but we need to try to remember not to be repetitive. We need to try to, if you have a question that hasn't been asked yet or something that hasn't been discussed, I'm going to ask that you speak. If you have already heard it on the floor or if it's just a comment that you want to say, I'm going to ask that you keep it to yourself at this point. Just let's. All right. So somebody said call the question. Who was that? Just so I know. Okay. Who was it? I need just a name. Beth, can you stand up? Where are you? Okay. And so I need a second. Anybody second? Okay, so we're going to stop the debate right now because of that. In order to pass this part, to call the question and move on to a vote, we need a 2/3 majority. All those in favor of calling the question, stopping it right now, please raise your orange card. And all of those opposed and want to keep talking, raise your orange card. All right, so that passes by a clear 2/3 majority vote, and we're going to end the debate now. Okay, so I'm going to ask Town Clerk Danielle Sicard to come up and explain how we're going to go through the secret ballot to make it orderly and fast. Okay, so hang on.
Everybody should have received a ballot when you first checked in tonight. We ask for you to stay in your seat until our escort is going to go row by row and have you take an orderly fashion to come up to the ballot box. What we'll have you do is we're going to be starting from the back down to the middle aisle, and when we get to the front, you're going to go to the middle aisle. Everybody will be going that way all the way to the end and then coming down the aisle on the far end over here, crossing across the front. There will be pens available at the select board's table if you need a pen to mark your ballot. At that point, you're going to go up this aisle here to the ballot box. What we'll ask you to do is to show your left hand, because it should have a mark on it that you obtained a ballot. You show that to the election worker before you get to the ballot box, and then after you place your ballot in the ballot box, you will get another stamp on your hand showing that you've already voted tonight, and then you can go back to your seat. Okay?
All right, so which row? So they'll tell them. Okay. Okay, so please be patient. The assistants are going to tell you which way, who to start with, and how to come down and go across. So please just be patient with us. If we make it orderly, it'll go quick. It'll go fast.
charge. Actually, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. Just from saying I was asking to shut up. Come on, we got already have my phone before. Hands down there so we can spread everyone out. Neither can I. Greg won't let me leave. Oh, you know what? Finance committee table. Yeah, use our tables. I don't know. I used one, so I assume it's okay. But I would just use whatever they handed out. Yeah.
Excuse me. I think McAvoy and Woodward might have been the last person to shower in there.
That's fantastic. Yeah, they kept the picture up there for a long time.
No, once we put it in the ballot.
Unfortunately, one of my daughters continues to raise from tickets. Not necessarily yours.
I came later up.
Yeah, but they've been closely together.
Called for it, so then they got to do it for 30 people, so. friends with him back
Mrs. Finch.
Did you feed him? Well, what do you think it was going to be?
Mrs. Finch.
Neither have I, but I knew it was going to be out.
Almost there. Almost there. Yeah, she's talking to me.
For those that live here. That doesn't seem right.
No. Google it or something. All right. I don't know about the Facebook. Maybe the email. It's a weekly email. Yeah, because when I registered for something, it was something that you could get like an email to server prior. So I just signed up for that last night. Yeah, you got to glean through it, but it's kind of cool because I don't qualify for the veteran thing, but there's a lot of veterans that there's information about this meeting and the election. There's a lot of service for elderly people.
money, I have to say.
Softball costs a lot of money, especially when you're hitting them into the leg.
Like 2 years ago, they had a guy that was how important it was that we were raising money so it's like a noble cause.
It's not our deal. We did hand out candy for our neighbors one year, so I'm hoping that she'll hand it out for us.
Oh, no. Tommy! How are you, man? Billy. Yeah. Fred's over there.
I'm sneaking in line. No, not to cut you off. Get away from her.
Can't believe it's been 6 years. You up to these days?
All right, I'm back in line.
Maybe.
Everybody doing?
Good. I mean, changed, but hands
What's that competitor? Like, are they also a bigger competitor? Were they cheaper? Was it about the money?
No, it was about the money.
Yeah, exactly.
Privately held company.
But then luckily the home you have a pass off. Unless you got excavated. Yeah. It's big excavator. Never
Have something to say. They cut me off.
She had to do, no, I can show you what happened. No, you don't. You don't want to know. It was a situation.
There's always a situation.
Yeah.
Can I just have everyone's attention for 1 second, please?
Go
Can I just have everybody's attention? Thanks. I just want to remind everybody two things. First, well, three things. First, that the vote will be read pretty much immediately upon when everybody's completed placing their ballot. Second is that we do have another article, so please don't leave because we still need that quorum for the article. And third is, if you're like milling about and talking, these microphones that where people were speaking from are still live. So unless you want everybody in the ECAT world to hear your conversation, you might want to not talk around the microphone. Okay, thanks.
Ben? All right. The same old voice. I heard the voice. Good to see you again. Good seeing you. Video runs out. I think I still see you out still doing your morning walks.
I try to. Yeah, I try either 1, 2, or 3.
getting online to get on the line.
Yeah. But I don't know if people have already
I
signed
have
it.
no idea.
Oh, you never know.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in a while. I don't know if I would have known that. How do you know that, Rich?
Well, I saw him when I went to the bathroom.
No.
And I just saw him there.
Trying to think of like. Yeah, I gotta get a better one. I could be able.
What's our quorum again? Right now we do. Yeah. Just in that back alone, there's like 60, 70 people. They're always texting us.
Looks familiar.
We don't need a traffic light here.
I remember being out there those times.
I don't like anybody.
How's Jeff? Is he okay? He got home okay? Well, you know, it sounds about on brand.
Okay, everyone, last call for the ballot box. If you haven't voted, now's your time. Last call. Okay, so the votes have been tallied, and the yeses are 370 yeses, and there are 118 noes. So Article 1 passes by a 2/3 majority. Okay, so we have one more article, Article 2, select.
Motion to adjourn.
No, they don't get to. No. We have one more article, Article 2. Select Board Member Barger.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board, on behalf of the town, to petition the General Court for passage of a special law known as an act authorizing the town of Easton to establish a means-tested senior citizens property tax exemption, as printed in the warrant under Article 2, provided that the clerical or editorial changes in form only to the bill shall be deemed acceptable, and provided further that the Select Board may approve material amendments to the bill before enactment by the legislature, provided that such amendments are within the scope of the general public objectives of this petition.
Second.
By way of explanation, this article would authorize the Select Board to submit a home rule petition to the General Court of the Commonwealth to enact a special law establishing a 3-year means-tested tax relief program for qualifying Easton seniors on fixed incomes. The intention of this article is to lessen the impact of any incremental tax increase associated with the passage of the Public Safety and Public Works Facility Replacement Project, which is Article 1. For multiple years, due to the anticipated bonding schedule of the project, bringing most exempt debt tax costs online in fiscal years 2026, 27, and 28, the town would coordinate with our legislative delegation to achieve state adoption and local implementation of the 3-year program to match the anticipated costliest years of incremental tax increases and reduce the cost of the project for qualified seniors until fiscal year 2029. Select Board recommends.
Finance Committee. I don't know if anybody's here from Board of Assessors, but they recommend as well. So are there any questions, comments, or concerns relative to Article 2?
Yes. Is this on?
It's on. I need a name and an address, please.
Okay, Priscilla Almquist Olson, 59 Seaver Street, Northeastern. Regarding Section 4, I bring your attention to, it says a person files an application with the supporting documentation of the applicant's income and assets. And so my question is threefold. Is the residence of the applicant and its value considered in the exemption, whether the person qualifies for the exemption? Secondly, what is the maximum amount of income that qualifies the applicant? And thirdly, what is the maximum amount of liquid assets that the person is allowed to have? Thank you, Rob.
Good evening, Robbie Alford, Chief Assessor. Basically, this would be someone who received the circuit breaker from the state of Massachusetts. That would be the beginning of the qualification. As far as the amount of income and the assets, that has not been set yet until everything's voted on. And the income for the home is based on what the income, the assessment of the home is based on the circuit breaker law. So that changes each year. I think last year was it couldn't be more than $921,000. And that changes every year, and that's based on the circuit breaker, which is done by the state. So anyone who receives it now, it's something you file with your income tax, and that form you would need to file for the exemption also, showing that you received the circuit breaker.
Thank you. If I could just add to that, this would lean on the state circuit breaker tax credit is updated by the state. This may change by the standards may change by the time it is in effect, but for tax year 2022, single income was $64,000, head of household 80, married, filing jointly was $96,000, and again, the value of your primary home is not counted against you. The intention of the program is for folks who maybe bought their home a long time ago. The value has gone up a substantial amount just through the passage of time, so their income may not be very high, but the value of their home is. So provided that that home wouldn't be worth more than $912,000, you meet the other standards in the state law, you could qualify.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns relative to Article 2? Okay, seeing none, Article 2 requires a simple majority vote. So all of those in favor of Article 2 passing, please raise your orange cards. All of those opposed, please raise your orange cards. And Article 2 passes by a majority. What was that? Did I hear a motion to adjourn? Yes. Okay, second. All right. Thank you. So this meeting is now, I'm sorry?
That way?
Oh, all in favor, sorry. All in favor. It's late. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming.